So I'm coming to you all with a new video. This video is gonna be a little different. I know, a little different. So back in December, I decided that I want to make a goal for 2024 of reading 50 books. Me personally, I am not an avid book reader, if at all. So there was very much a huge goal for me. So I did start off the year pretty strong with reading 5 books. I don't want to technically say 6 because I ended up really reading majority of one of my books in February. So I'm just gonna kind of toward my February goal, but I did read 5 books this month, well past month, and I'm just gonna talk a little bit about them. So stay tuned. Where was It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Popular belief, a lot of people don't like, I guess it's her style of writing or so. I actually got this book, I think 2022. I had read Verity with a couple of women that I worked with at a job at the time, and I enjoyed it. And I ended up getting this book after reading Verity, but I never read it. It just sat on my shelf. And so I set out the goal for this year. I had picked it back up and I finally read it. And I think I ended up rating this like 3 out of 5. It can be triggering for some people because it does talk about domestic abuse. And yeah, so I think I ended up reading this maybe like a day. It probably was a day or a day and a half. And I immediately ended up getting the second book, which at first I didn't know it was a second book to it. I had been reading this, and then I had a coworker notice what I was reading, and she noticed the author. She was like, I haven't read that book yet. And I told her, you should get it and we should read it together. So I had just started the book, so she actually ended up getting it and we actually read it together. And she was the one that actually told me that, did you know it was the second book? Which I did not know. So I ended up getting the second book. So it brings me to the second book I'm going to talk about, which is She Told Me About. It Starts With Us. I did rate the first one at 3. I feel like I gave this one like a 2.5. Mainly because I'm not a villain, y'all. I feel like it was so cheesy. It was just cheesy. Honestly, I guess you say without me saying too much, maybe like a brighter side to the first one, or a happier side, but I don't know, I just wasn't feeling it. I just was like, this is just a little bit too cheesy for me. Did I finish it? Of course I did. And did I like the ending? Honestly, I feel like the ending was predictable for me. Even when I started the book, I feel like I already knew how it was gonna end. I feel like if you read the first one and you started this, you kind of already knew how it was gonna end. But yeah. And also, that was the last Colleen Hoover book that I did read. Then I started venturing out to something different. So then, after I read these 2, honestly, I read these 2 books. I read these 2 books, and I was like, let me look on TikTok, of all places, for some recommendations. So then I started to get on TikTok, and obviously I went down a rabbit hole of book talk. So me being still new to book talk, I was like, what type of books do I really even need? Really even like? I don't even know yet. So I just was like, I was open to all genres. So I came across this book on TikTok, and I was like, okay, let me really see what this hype is about. You might know because it's very smutty. Icebreaker. If you were to pick up this book and just by looking at the cover, you would have thought, oh, so sweet. Boy, was I wrong. Luckily, I was not one of those people who bought the book before like knowing a little bit of background about it. Yeah. I rated this 4 stars. No, 3.5 is what I rated it. I feel like I'm gonna be a hard rater, but I rated it 3.5, mainly because yes, it's spicy. It is. but I feel like it was a good plot. And yeah, the plot was there. I feel like I am one of those people where, yes, I do enjoy some spice, but I do want a plot to be there. I don't want it to just be spice. I want a plot. So there was, you know, a good plot there, and also did contain quite a bit of spice. Quite a bit of spice. So I ended up rating this book a 3.5 out of 5. So yeah. So this brings me into my fantasy era. I said I was open to trying new books, and obviously I saw this book all over TikTok, all over the internet, Akatar. I must say, I still am on the fence if I'm a fantasy girly or not, but I am still open to trying and reading all types of books, fantasy books included. But when I first started this book, I was like, honey, this not gonna be for me. Granted, this book is 400 and something pages. Yeah, 400 and something. And this is what the biggest book I've read. Yeah, this is the longest book I had read. And I was like, oh honey, this seems a little bit intimidating. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do all this. This is a thick book. But I did end up finish reading it. I did take quite a while to finish this book. It definitely took me maybe like a week and a half, because I kept reading it and stopping and reading and stopping. Because in the beginning I was so bored, honestly. Y'all don't kill me for this. I was bored in the beginning. It did start getting better. It got a whole lot better, but in the beginning I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to finish this. This not for me. I'm a little confused. But I stayed true to it. I did ended up finishing it, and I just was like, oh wow, I'm really glad that I did end up finishing it, because it turned out to be a really good book. I do have the second book in this series. I haven't started it yet. I'm thinking about putting it in my February TBR. I'm not really sure yet, because unlike this book being 400 something pages, the next book is like 700 something pages, and that will be the most pages I've read in a book. And I'm not sure if I'm ready for that one yet. I'm not sure, but it might go on there. So the next book I'm gonna talk about. I read this book and I was just like, you know what? Chef's kiss. I was pissed at one point. I was happy. I got a little sad at one point. Shout out to the girl that I went to school with that recommended this book to me, because this book, if you haven't read this book, go get this. Go get this. Go get this right now. Pause this video. You can come back. Go get this. Best book I read this month. It had enough spice for me in the plot. I see that I am very much gonna be a second chance romance type of girl. I see that for me. Cause this book definitely was a 4.5 for me. Well earned. Because I read this book not even 2 days. It didn't even take me to do that. Maybe like a day and a half. Every free time, every quiet time at work, I was reading this book. Like, don't bother me. Oh, I'm busy. But yeah, definitely read this. Okay. So the next book I'm gonna talk about, I really wouldn't consider it a January read, because I started it January, well, the last day of January, and I obviously finished it in February. I just started it in January. So I'm gonna count this toward my February read. And you all, the last book I'm gonna talk about is a part of a series. I came across it on Book Talk, And I was just like, okay, let me go get this book. I feel like I'm gonna be a series girly. I definitely see that for me. I rated this book a 4 out of 5 stars. Very spicy book. So if you don't like spice, this ain't the book for you. But it was really good. There was a plot there, even though it was quite spicy. Twisted Love. Now, I know a lot of you girlies have already read this book, and I'm just late to it, but oh baby, I like this book, and I will be reading the other 3 books in this series. It was, you know, it was spicy, but it wasn't overly spicy like I would say Icebreaker that I read. It was a nice amount of spice, but also had a plot there. So I'm definitely excited to read the rest of the books in the series. And you guys, that's all the books that I read this month. And if you guys have any recommendations for me of some books that I should read, or some books I should put on my February TBR, leave some recommendations down below. I am very open to all genres. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video.